In this lesson, we're going to begin talking about verifying our toolpaths. To get started, let's open up the file MCU3D Gas Pedal L10. Inside here in the Toolpath Manager, we want to expand the Haas VF5X machine group, and we want to take a look at Setup 1 and Setup 2. Setup 1 is where we machine the back side of our part. But when we start to talk about verifying these, we've already created a lot of stock models so that we could take a look at the progress through the toolpaths. We've also created a stock model at the very end of Setup 1. If we take a look at Setup 2, we start off with operation number 16, which is our OptiRough. Now in order to verify this, we're going to take a look at going into the simulator options, and we want to start with a stock model. In this case, we're going to start with stock model Setup 1, 5, and we're going to say OK. We then are going to keep Setup 2 operation 16 selected and go into our Verify Selected Operations. As we open up this, it's going to bring in any fixtures that we've dictated we want to use, as well as the stock model as our starting point. This is especially important when you are flipping parts over and machining them from the other side. As we rotate this around, you can see that the current vise as well as our design fixture are inside of this file, and the stock model is our starting point because the underside has already been machined. As we play through this, we can take a look at cutting the part as if it's already been flipped over physically. Again, this is a great way for us to start verifying our operations, make sure that we're not doing things like leaving a large chunk of stock to get flung off as we're machining, and also just to make sure that we're not gouging a vise or a fixture or having any other additional issues. As you play through the verification, you have several different options that we can look at. We can take a look at the move ID and elapsed time, the operation name and type, as well as things like the length that the tool has been feeding, the amount of time it takes for it to feed to complete this operation, as well as the amount of time that's spent doing things like rapid movements. We also have a tab to check for collisions. Now ideally you want to see no collisions here, but if you have a collision, it might help you identify exactly which toolpath and a specific ID of when that happened. Along the top section, we also have various options. You'll notice that highlighted in green right now we have the verify option, and we have collision checking turned on. We can also do things like change the color loop by operation so that it removes material in multiple operations and changes the color of the stock. Right now everything's set to yellow regardless of any changes in operations, and in this specific case we're only looking at one toolpath. We can change the display by doing things like showing where the tool has been or where it's heading. We can also do things like make clipping planes and see inside of the part to make sure that the tool is getting into all the areas we need. There are lots of options inside of the Verify tab that you can look at, and they will do things like, for example, keep chips. So this one will allow you to keep the stock on the screen. Let's take a look at some of the view options that we have. Inside of here, we can change the way that we're viewing the part, such as doing 2 views in a row, 4 views, 2 views in a column, or restoring our default view. We can also dictate what we want to show on the right-hand side. For example, if we want to turn on a Compare tab, an Axis Control tab, Timeline, as well as Toolpath Analysis. So these various options will allow us to change things, change the way that we're seeing the results of our operations. Lastly, on the Home tab, we can change other things as well, such as showing the original workpiece. We can make the stock partially transparent. We can bring it back solid to make sure it's all being removed. And we can even turn on and off things like the toolpath. We can also dictate whether or not we want to show the holder, the shank, the shoulder, or even turn the tool off completely and just watch the material being removed. It's usually a good idea to leave these on, at least initially, to make sure that we don't have any visual issues with where the tool is moving. We have a playback section where we can dictate what stop conditions we might want. For example, if we wanted to always stop on an operation change, a tool change, or a collision, we can turn these options off and it'll pause the program or the playback, and we'll have to manually OK that. So this gives us a great interactive feature that allows us to pause the program while it's running and see exactly where collisions are happening. So again, you can see that with the initial setup, that this is a great way for us to validate what we're doing in terms of roughing and finishing operations, especially once we flip a part over. If we go back into our program, at any point in time, we can come back and we can modify exactly where we want the starting point of the verify to be. For example, we've already gone through and we've machined operation 16 based on the stock model from setup 1. Now if we go back into our options, we can change the stock model we want to use to setup 2-1. We can also change what fixtures we want to display. For example, if we don't want to display the vise, we can turn that off and simply just show the fixture. So now if we're going to make any verifications, we want to do this by selecting all the operations and then playing back through everything that's after that initial stock model. On the Home tab inside of the Mastercam simulator, we also have some options to record our view. If you want to record the screen and play it back, you can record it directly inside of the Mastercam simulator. Let's go ahead and play through these toolpaths to make sure that the final output of our part is going to be acceptable. So now we can see at the end of our part that everything's been machined properly. There's a small chip that's floating off in space here, but it's small enough that it's not going to cause a problem when we're manufacturing. I also do want to note that while we're cutting these multi-axis toolpaths, that the tool itself actually angles itself away from the part. We'll explore this a little bit more later when we use the Mastercam simulator with an actual machine. But for right now, just understand that inside of this Mastercam simulator, when we're verifying, the stock is going to stay fixed and the tool is going to move. The last thing that I want to mention inside of the Mastercam simulator for Verify is on the Verify tab at the very right hand side, we have Save Stock as STL. We have the ability to save the stock out after it's been machined in the Mastercam simulator as an STL file. This STL file can be used as initial stock in another program, whether you need to flip it over again or send it to another machine, or it can be exported for other reasons. So just keep in mind that there are various options inside of the Mastercam simulator that can be very helpful to you in your machining process. For right now, let's make sure that we save our file so we can move on to the next step.